Hello, I'm Peter and welcome to a Tekken 7 guide on Bryan Fury. As a preface, I'm going to assume that you have a working understanding of Bryan's key moves and some basic combos. So if you don't, check the video description below to get some beginner Bryan knowledge. Understanding frame data here wouldn't hurt either, so if you need help with that, click here. Now, in this video, we will cover Bryan's general game plan, or at least what I think his general game plan is. However, if you're looking on specifically how to utilize his tools and developing a general game plan, it will be in the next few videos, so stay tuned. I'm going to keep this video basic and general because this rabbit hole can go deep, and I mean really deep. I will not cover specific character matchups in detail as that video would take a million years, but I will give general tips to guide you in the right direction. So let's get to it. Bryan's general game plan can be broken down into three main aspects. The first of which is space control. Bryan's greatest strength by far is protecting his personal space. One does not simply walk into Bryan's space. Let me show you a visual representation of that space. See that green box right here, that green box? This is your space as a Bryan player. Bryan's key moves such as 3+4, Mach Kick, Mach Punch, and even Orbital Heal to some extent cover this green box. So make sure no one walks in there without making them block or getting hit by one of these moves. Remember, this is your personal space. Keep in mind this green box because you will be protecting this. Counter hitting. If protecting space is Bryan's primary strength, his secondary strength is definitely fishing for counter hits. He is literally built as a counter hitting machine. Do they love to run in and start pressing buttons? 3+4, counter hit. Do they love mashing jab? Northern cross, counter hit. Do they keep pressing buttons even after being hit? Forward 3, counter hit. Do they love to disrespect your attack strings? Quarter circle back 2-4. I could keep going on with examples, but you get the idea, and you can see that Bryan is very capable of capitalizing on his opponents who love to press buttons. Pressure and poking. This is the last and final part of Bryan's game plan trifecta. After counter hitting your opponent and trapping them in the corner or connecting an attack that gives you plus frames, it's time to apply pressure. I've gone ahead and lumped pressure and poking together as Bryan's poking game requires some commitment, but at the same time it can be used to pressure. Moves such as back 1, down forward 1-1-1-2, 1-2-1, 1-2-3, forward 3, hatchet kick, and many others are all good tools to further this game plan. General game plan diagram. Alright, so when all is said and done, here is what you can expect the game plan to look like. As you can see, we have space control, we have counter hit fishing, pressure and poking. All these aspects we just talked about, they're interconnected. They are basically within each other and flowing to and from one another. For instance, protecting space can lead to counter hits if your opponent is overly aggressive, right? And they run into your attacks. And from that, counter hitting puts your opponent on the ground, or if you combo them to the wall, it becomes a great time to then apply pressure. And after pressure, you can go back to counter hitting if your opponent tries to mash out. Or you can go back to establishing and controlling space by moving away from your opponent if they block your pressure. So as you can see, each of these aspects of this triangle form a point with one another. And it is entirely possible that one aspect, like counter hitting, can loop into itself, right? For example, counter hitting can loop into counter hitting, or space control looping into space control, or poking and pressure into poking and pressure. This diagram is probably nothing new, as even beginner Bryan players do this, and quite possibly naturally. However, there is one crucial aspect missing. What is that? Movement. Take a look. So why is movement in the middle? Well, movement is what ties counter hitting, space control, and pressure. Movement can always be defaulted back on. After protecting your space, you can choose to move. After pressuring, you can choose to move. And after counter hitting, you can choose to move. After a combo, of course, if you land a combo for that. And just so you have an idea, I'll show you some of these examples, and these examples will be based on what your opponent does. Don't just pick one of these examples and think, that's cool, I'll use this. Think about it, then use it. First, we are going to look at joining space control to pressure by using movement. Here is the sequence we are going to analyze. Take a look. All right, what we have here is Mach Punch to control our space, followed by a backdash into a back one. This might seem weird to some beginners because they will look at the frame data and say, wow, Mach Punch is -10. We should hold our guards and not press any buttons, let alone try to press back one, which is 20 frames on startup. Like, how in the world are you going to pressure someone when you're at -10 and using a 20 frame move? However, what is not being accounted for here is 1, the pushback of Mach Punch, and 2, the backdash that we are doing. With this sequence of moves, we are actually looking to capitalize on the fact that our opponent likes to press buttons, specifically buttons that advance them forward about 1 dash. And I'm going to play some examples of here are the things that we can capitalize on. When we combine the pushback of Mach Punch and the backdash, here are some of the things that we can really avoid and still be in range to use our back one as a pressure tool. So really, the only things that will hit us are long range strings, so long strings, and if the opponent predicts that we're going to do this exact thing and run straight up at us with an attack. Next, we are going to look at transitioning from poking to counter hitting by using movement. Here is the sequence. Take a look. What we have here is down 4 to poke, followed by sidestep into forward 3, looking to get a counter hit. We're fishing for a counter hit. On the surface, some beginners might wonder why not just do a down 4 into forward 3 without the sidestep. Yes, you're absolutely right. You can do a down 4 into forward 3 without a sidestep. However, with a sidestep, we can avoid certain moves entirely. For example, YOLO hop kicks. We can avoid those with a sidestep. Or even something really unsafe like a YOLO shoulder or something else. At the same time, we can counter hit some attack strings when we do the sidestep into forward 3. But As with everything Tekken, this is, not a foolproof thing, since we are sidestepping, we will be caught by longer range homing moves, or longer strings, or some low attacks. Do try to be creative and unpredictable with using the 3 different game plans that we've laid out, in addition to movement. You can do stuff like counter hit, move, counter hit, space control, move, space control, and so on and so forth. The possibilities of varying how you approach the game greatly expands out to you once you add movement to your bag of tools. We'll be moving on, but in the next few videos in the future, I will definitely go further in depth regarding the concept of switching game plans from things such as space control to movement to counter hits, and etc. So don't worry, those of you who are looking for more ideas on how to develop your game plans and within the triangle, I'll definitely be posting more videos, so stay tuned for that. So one question that might pop up is, should I incorporate the game plan triangle of spacing, counter hitting, poking, and pressure in all of my games? Well, the simple answer is yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. In some matches, you want to focus more on protecting your space instead of poking and counter hitting, because your opponent might have better options for counter hitting and poking. Conversely, if your opponent is better at protecting space, you should probably focus more on counter hitting and pressure. Additionally, things such as movement, how much you should sidestep or how much you should not sidestep, will really depend on the character and your opponent. So, alright Peter, that's all fine and well, but how do I know which aspect of the general game plan to focus on? Well, fear not. I've gone ahead and created this handy dandy graph to help new Bryan players identify which aspects of the game plan to focus on per matchup. Take a look. Alright, as a precaution, this is based on my experience of the game, the players I've played, and my theory crafting. So take this with a grain of salt and not the end all be all. If results may vary, no refunds or credit return available. Now for this image, I've gone ahead and put it in the video description, so you can make sure to click that and check it out. This chart is meant to assist you in approaching matchups, not a definitive guide necessarily on how to play against a character. It's meant to help steer you in the correct direction. This chart will vary depending on the individual player and their playstyle that they decide to play. But just for posterity's sake, we're going to look at 2 particular characters that are on polarizing sides of this chart. We're going to look at Steve and we're going to look at Kazuya. So if we look at Steve, who is one of Bryan's worst matchups on paper, based on this chart, we want to keep him at distance at all costs. We want to keep him out and sidestep very little against him, because Steve has a great host of moves such as down forward 2, peekaboo 2, back 1, and even his attack strings like 1-2-1 and 2-1-2. They track quite well. He can pressure us incredibly safe, far better than we can pressure him. And this is in part due to his multiple stances like peekaboo and flicker, which auto guard highs and mids for him. On top of that, he can also counter hit us far better and faster than we can counter hit him, with his multiple of strings, homing attacks, and attacks out of stances. So because of all those compounding reasons, we want to keep him out and not be in his face as much as possible. On the other extreme, we have Kazuya. We want to pressure Kazuya and sidestep him constantly and sidewalk him constantly. He doesn't have any panic moves, really. Most of the scary stuff that we see, such as electrics, hell sweeps, forward 3, these are all steppable and walkable to the left. We also don't really have to be scared of his homing attacks because they are more or less lackluster and have flaws in them. For instance, down forward 2. As soon as he throws that out, he's minus 12. We can punish him for that. His back 4, it's a high. If we duck it, we can launch him. And not to mention his while standing 2, it's minus 18 on block. We can get a launch on that. And to round things off, we also don't want to give Kazuya too much space to start wave dash pressuring. So we want to keep the pressure on him. So that's why we want to pressure and sidestep a lot against Kazuya. So like I said, this chart is in the video description below. So go ahead and check this out when you get an opportunity. And if you're playing Bryan, hopefully this helps you in some way, shape, or form. Because I know that with all the characters in the game, sometimes it can be really difficult just even knowing, oh, should I be pressuring? Should I be trying to keep out? These are things that I struggled with initially, and I hope this chart really helps those of you who might be in a little bind and not sure what to do in certain matchups. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope the general game plan triangle has helped those of you out a little bit, and the matchup chart for Bryan in terms of when to keep out pressure, sidestep or not sidestep. I also hope that helps you guys out tremendously as well. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, share, you know the drill. Thanks so much and have a good one. I'm Peter and I'm signing out. Take care.